talking about such a band like the Misfits, people would bring up the different eras of the band, whether it's the original Danzig era or the Jerry Only era, but the one that nobody usually mentions is the 90s era of the band with Michael Graves and how underrated that era truly was. But before we get into the whole history of that era and what happened during and after, we need to slowly get into the history of how the lineup came to be. 1983 was both a good and a bad year for the Misfits, as they would release the iconic hardcore album Earth AD/Wolf's Blood in December, but on Halloween of 1983, founding member and lead singer Glenn Danzig would leave the band due to him feeling held back in the band, so he would soon form the band Samhain with Eerie Von. During this breakup period, Danzig would release compilation albums under the Misfits name, Legacy Brutality in 1985 and Collection 1 and 2 being released in 1986 and 1995 respectively. On the other hand, founding bass player Jerry Only and his brother, who was guitar player Doyle, would soon form the Christian metal band Christ of Conqueror. The band was formed due to Jerry hoping that the righteous message of that band would reach out to fans, especially those who had followed Danzig's post-Misfits career with the band Samhain and later on Danzig. In Jerry's eyes, he felt that those bands were satanic, evil, and possibly damaging to impressionable youths. While the group was active, they put out an EP called Deliver Us from Evil 1989 with Jeff Scott Soto on vocals. An album with the same name was recorded, but it remained unreleased until it leaked online a few years ago. During the whole ordeal, Jerry would actually sue Glenn Danzig for the royalties on the music of the Misfits. For the compilation albums that were released after the breakup, Glenn would overdub these songs for those, so he wouldn't have to pay royalties for the rest of the members in the band, including Eerie Von, who did bass and drums on Collection 2. The lawsuit had lasted until 1995 when both parties reached a settlement out of court. The settlement had allowed Jerry and Doyle to perform and record with the Misfits name, and they'd share merchandising rights with Danzig. And so, with that fact, Doyle and Jerry soon began to reform the Misfits. They would recruit a drummer they had from the Christ the Conqueror days. That drummer was 31-year-old David Calabrese, later known as the abominable Dr. Chud, and he'd serve as the drummer for the new Misfits. Then, all that was left was a singer. Now initially, Jerry went to Glenn to ask if he would rejoin, as in his own words, he did it for the fans, but Glenn refused the offer, and according to Jerry, even threw him out of his hotel room. Along with that, Dave Vanian of The Damned was offered a role, but declined or didn't get back in touch, depending on who you ask on that story. But soon a light would come, as Jerry soon found 19-year-old Michael Emanuel as a recording manager who Michael had worked with, had suggested him after Michael had recorded a demo for his band The Mopes. Now, when they found Michael and they tried to audition for him, he didn't know any of the songs. He didn't know any of the songs at all. So depending on who you ask, he was given a copy of Collection 1 and Walk Among Us once, and he would listen to them while he worked from his Walkman so he can learn all the songs and stuff. During his audition, songs like Skulls and Hybrid Moments were played, and the band was fairly impressed. We could also play You Said the auditions right here. Due to the band being impressed, Michael was accepted into the band as their new singer, was renamed to Michael Graves. Along with this, Doyle would adopt his full stage name as well, being Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein. This era would also be the start of the band being movie stars, as the first appearance the lineup made was in the 1995 drama thriller Animal Room starring Matthew Lillard.
Come on, Baldy, I still can't hear a fucking thing.
The band would do a few surprise shows on Halloween of 1995 before fully going out and touring in 1996. During the touring cycle, the band would play many Danzig-era songs, including songs from the unreleased Static Age album, which later came out as a part of the Misfits box set in '96, before it got its own standalone release in 1997. But speaking of '97, on May 13th, 1997, the new era of the band released the fourth studio album that they put out, American Psycho, on Geffen Records. And this made the debut appearance of Michael and Chud on albums. The album was originally meant to be named Dead King's Rise as a form of wordplay of the band's resurrection. However, the track of the same name wouldn't make the official release of the album. However, it would appear as a bonus track in the original vinyl release, along with the track Hell Night being a CD exclusive hidden track. Songs from the album would soon become casuals on the live set list, and songs like American Psycho, The Hunger, Crimson Ghost, Walk Among Us, Dig Up Her Bones, and Indomitable Mr. Dr. Phoebes, to name a few, we played along songs like Static Age, Halloween, Hybrid Moments, and Last Caress, to name a few. In July of 1997, the album would have would have its first and only single come out with Dig Up Her Bones, with Hate the Living, Love the Dead as its B-side. The single was also the first time the band had a proper music video where in it, clips of the band playing live, Graves in a Graveyard, and footage of the 1935 classic Bride of Frankenstein, along with the bride being on the cover of the single. Along with Dig Up Her Bones, the band would also film a video for American Psycho. The video showed the Crimson Ghost, the band's mascot, finding his way to a room which contains an organ and a few coffins. Those coffins would open and show to have the band members inside, before soon waking up and walking out to cue to the band performing the song live, while also intersplicing clips of Graves in a straitjacket, presumably in a mental institution. After the videos premiered on MTV's 120 Minutes and would be on the music video rotation broadcast, the band saw semi-successful American Psycho, getting good reviews, even charting 117th on the Billboard 200. The band would soon tour Europe and North America in support of the album, which also gave birth to Evil Live 2, a Fiend Club exclusive sequel to the first Evil Live live album. However, in 1998, Michael Graves took a hiatus from the band. In his words, he says, "I took a hiatus because I was kicked out of the band, essentially. I found out that Mike Hideous was taking my spot, so it didn't make any sense to me, so essentially I was fired from the band." While Michael was on his hiatus, the band has still had to tour South America, so they found Mike Edison of Empire Hideous to fill in, and he was known as Mike Hideous during his time. Most recordings show him to be not the best vocalist when it comes to lyrics due to him messing up, but overall Mike Hideous was a pretty good singer when they had him in the Misfits, plus he looked badass. However, Mike wasn't meant to last as soon as Michael came back and the band signed to Roadrunner Records. The band would spend most of 1999 in the studio and going on tour with a few media appearances before on October 5th, 1999, the band released their fifth studio album, Famous Monsters. Like its counterpart, Famous Monsters did fairly well in sales and critics, this time hitting 138 on Billboard 200. The band, of course, went out to tour the album as songs like Lost in Space, Scream, Saturday Night, Helena, Forbidden Zone would be added to the set list, while in terms of bonus tracks, we end up getting 3 of them. The Japanese release of the album got Devil Doll as a bonus, while Europe got that and 2 extra songs, 1 Million Years BC and Helena 2 on the album release. The only single for Famous Monsters was the iconic song Scream, which got a music video directed by, in a sense, the originator of the zombie movie, George A. Romero. The demo version of the song was originally meant to be used for the upcoming Scream 2, but wasn't used due to that fact. They then re-recorded it for the album with faster tempo and different lyrics. The video came to be as at the time, Romero needed a band to perform in his film Bruiser. The Misfits agreed to being in a film and making 2 songs, i.e. Bruiser and Fiend Without a Face, in exchange for him directing the video. Now the video consists of the band as zombies terrorizing a hospital with a few fans. Filming went well except for a moment when Michael was late. According to Jerry's brother in his own words, Michael doesn't show up, and we have to have an understudy put on the makeup and walk through the scene really quick. And it looks like Michael, you wouldn't even know the difference. However, Michael's story tells about him and Doyle not having a ride up there and them being late for filming due to that. The rest of 1999 was filled with more touring, a cover of the iconic Monster Mash, which had the debut appearance of Jerry on lead vocals, and an appearance on WCW with Vampiro. The band would also appear in films from 2000-2001. Of course, the already mentioned Bruiser, but also Campfire Stories and Big Money Hustlers, a movie starring the Insane Clown Posse. However, tensions would rise in with the band as soon on October 25th, 2000, during a gig at the House of Blues in Orlando, Florida, both Michael Graves and Dr. Chubb would quit the band and walk off stage. During that time, the band had found a singer to finish the tour in the form of Zoli. Though after that tour, he was let go, and soon Doyle had to take an indefinite hiatus from performing due to tendonitis in his elbow and personal problems. So during the time of still wanting the tour, Jerry took over lead vocal duties and hired Des Cadino of Black Flag on guitar and Earth AD drummer Robo on drums. Doyle wasn't a fan of the new direction, so he then quit the band, leaving Jerry the only original Misfits member at the time. Around that time, Jerry released a compilation album of demos, covers, and a few tracks from movies called Cuts from the Crypt on October 30th, 2001. Demos of songs like Dead King's Rise, Scream, The Hunger, and originals like Bruiser, Fiend Without a Face, and a criminally underrated No More Moments would make its way onto this album. However, after that, the other ex-members got busy, mainly Graves and Shud, as they would then form the band Graves. The band consisted of Michael on vocals and occasional guitar, Tom Logan on lead guitar, Left Hand Graham on bass, and of course Dr. Chud on drums. And he would also play keyboard and produce the band's only album on March 31st, 2002. Web of Drama were released, and the band would tour that album and had been a touring band since about 2001. During that time, Graves would perform, to our knowledge, only live recording of No More Moments, as well as a few other, Misfits jams during that entire period. All was well until September of 2002 when the band would break up, and out of that, two bands would form. Graves then would go form the band Gotham Road, which released the Seasons of the Witch EP in 2003, which soon became an album in 2008, and Chud would form his own band, being Dr. Chud's X Word, which released their only album, Diagnosis of Death, in 2004. Doyle would also come back and start a new band, Gorgeous Frankenstein, which included Graves and Chud. They even got together and reunited as an opener in 2009 for Danzig, and they played some Graves era songs, those being Helena, Lost in Space, Scarecrow Man, and Shining. Originally, they were supposed to play Dig Up Her Bones as well, but couldn't due to time, sadly. Meanwhile, with Jerry, he still had the Misfits name, so he had released a covers album, Project 1950-2003, and in 2006, an EP called Psycho in the Wax Museum was released, which included 2 unreleased instrumental tracks from the American Psycho sessions, those tracks being Angel Baby and Death of the Fallen Angel. And besides a re-release of the famous Monsters track, Descending Angel, as a single in 2013, that was the end of the Graves era, essentially. Now, in conclusion, while it had its problems, the Michael Graves era is still a good part of the band's history, with great music to back it up. And yes, I know that Michael is not known for having the best political views. That shouldn't still blind the fact that American Psycho, Famous Monsters, and Graves as a whole were great things to come to the band and gave us great tracks during it. Now, my stance is that I think that this is my favorite era of the band next to Danzig. Songs like American Psycho, Dig Up Her Bones, No More Moments, and Resurrection, to name a few, helped me get into the band, and so I have respect for Graves in that regard. If you somehow haven't checked out these albums, then I highly would suggest you do. The albums can be found on streaming, minus Cuts from the Crypt, you can find on YouTube for free. Thanks for watching this video, and if you liked it, maybe give us a subscribe and like the video. Let us know if you'd like to see more Misfits content, as I would love to do so, and maybe a video on Danzig later on with Sam Hain, and I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Maybe I'll be